When will your ex start missing you? That's probably one of the most common questions people ask after a breakup. A man sits there thinking, she saw how much I did for her. How can she feel nothing? When will she realize what she lost? When will she start missing me? When will she want to come back? And there's one thing many men completely fail to understand. A woman may leave you not because she found someone better. She may leave because, in her mind, she has already created an image of someone better. And those are two completely different things. Before leaving, a person often creates a certain picture of what their future life is going to look like. In that picture, the future man may be more attentive, more interesting, more confident, more attractive, more successful. He'll understand her without her saying a word. He'll always know exactly what she wants. He'll never annoy her. He'll never get tired. He'll never argue with her. And most importantly, he'll give her all the emotions she believes were missing from her current relationship. But there's one problem. That person doesn't exist. He isn't a real man. He's a fantasy. He's a collection of qualities created in her mind from movies, social media, other people's stories, and her own expectations. And as long as she compares a real man to this imaginary ideal, the real man will almost always lose. Because a real person can't compete with a fantasy. A real man has flaws. He gets tired sometimes. He gets irritated. Sometimes he says the wrong thing. Sometimes he wants to be alone. Sometimes he forgets something. He has his own interests, his own problems, his own weaknesses. But the imaginary man has none of that. He exists only to fulfill her expectations. And that's why, before a breakup, a woman may look at her partner and think, I hate this about him. I don't like that about him. He doesn't understand me. He's not romantic enough. He's not the way I imagined him. And then she looks at her fantasy and thinks, that's the kind of man I would be happy with. And of course, the fantasy wins. Because it has no flaws. But then something interesting happens. She actually leaves. And for the first time, she gets a chance to compare fantasy with reality. Let's say a new man appears. At first, everything is great. He's new. He's interesting. He courts her. He sends her messages. He tries to impress her. And she thinks, I knew it. I made the right choice. That's why an ex may look completely happy right after a breakup. She may post pictures, smile, travel, meet new people, and openly show everyone how amazing her new life is. And at that moment, the man may think, well, that's it. She's forgotten me. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Because the new person is still showing his best side. At the beginning of a relationship, almost everyone presents the best version of themselves. He's attentive, caring, interesting. There are no accumulated conflicts between them yet. She doesn't know his habits. She doesn't know his flaws. She doesn't know how he behaves when he's in a bad mood. She doesn't know how he handles money, stress, jealousy, problems, or everyday responsibilities. For now, she only sees the surface. Then time passes. And ordinary life begins. And this is where the fantasy slowly starts to fall apart. She discovers that the new man can be selfish too. He gets tired too. He gets irritated too. He has his own expectations. He wants things from the relationship too. And suddenly she discovers something very unpleasant. The new man turned out to be a human being. And human beings always have flaws. That's when the comparison begins. But now she's no longer comparing a real man to a fantasy. Now she's comparing two real people. And at that moment, the ex may suddenly start looking completely different. What once seemed like a flaw may start to look like a familiar trait. What used to annoy her may even start to seem cute. She remembers how you picked her up after work. How you helped her. How you took care of her. How you solved problems. How you supported her when she was having a hard time. How you knew her habits. How you could understand her mood from just one look. And then an uncomfortable question appears. What if I was wrong? That's when she may start missing you. But it's important to understand something. An ex doesn't necessarily start missing you when she's alone. She may start missing you when she finally comes face to face with reality. Because sometimes being alone actually helps a person maintain the fantasy. When there's no one else around, she can keep imagining. Someday I'll meet the right person, and then everything will be perfect. But as soon as a real partner enters her life, the fantasy has to collide with reality. And reality is what can destroy that fantasy. So the question, when will my ex start missing me, isn't really the right question. The better question is, when will she stop comparing me to a fantasy? Because as long as you're competing with an imaginary man, you have almost no chance. You can't beat someone who doesn't exist. You can't simultaneously be the most romantic, most successful, calmest, most attractive, most understanding man in the world, and never make a mistake. Even if you become 10 times better, the fantasy can simply become even better. And that's why a man often makes a huge mistake after a breakup. He starts trying to prove to his ex that he has changed. He texts her, explains himself, tells her how much he has changed, posts new pictures, tries to show off his success, tries to make her jealous, tries to remind her that he exists. But the problem is, if she's still living inside her fantasy, all of this can actually work against him. She looks at him and thinks, he's still trying to get me back. And that only makes her feel more confident that leaving was the right decision. And this is the hardest thing for a man to do. Nothing. Not because you should play some manipulative game, but because you can't force another person to destroy their own illusion. You can't tell her, look, the new guy has flaws too. She has to discover that herself. And if she does, she may have an opportunity to reevaluate the relationship she left behind. But there's another important point. You shouldn't assume that every ex will eventually come back. That would just be another form of self-deception. Sometimes relationships really are over. Sometimes two people simply stop being compatible. Sometimes someone leaves and genuinely builds a happier life with someone else. And a man has to be prepared for that possibility too. Because the goal after a breakup shouldn't be to sit around waiting for your ex to finally realize her mistake. The goal is to get your own life back. And here's the paradox. The harder a man tries to get a woman back, the fewer reasons she has to actually feel his absence. He's always there. He's available. He responds. He explains. He begs. He reminds her that he exists. But you only truly feel someone's absence when you realize that you no longer have access to that person the way you used to. Not as punishment. Not as manipulation. But simply because the relationship ended. And if, after some time, she starts remembering you, comparing you to other men, and realizing that many of the things she once considered flaws were actually just part of the person she loved, she may start wanting to come back. But that desire has to come from her. Without your begging. Without pressure. Without endless conversations. And then there's a completely different question. Does she want to come back because she truly realized her mistake, or simply because she became lonely? Because those are two completely different things. If someone comes back only because the new man turned out to be worse, the original problem hasn't disappeared. But if she comes back because she genuinely reevaluated the relationship, accepted responsibility, and truly changed the way she sees you, then you can have a conversation. So if you're going through a breakup right now and waiting for your ex to start missing you, remember one thing. Don't try to compete with her fantasy. Let reality do its job. You don't have to prove that you're better than every man in the world. You don't have to become perfect. You simply have to stop trying to hold on to someone who chose to leave. Because sometimes a person only realizes the value of what they had after they truly experience its absence. And sometimes they never realize it at all. You have to be prepared for both possibilities. Because the most important thing after a breakup isn't getting your ex back. The most important thing is not losing yourself while trying to get her back.